Welcome to RS3 Class 3. Today we're talking about graduate school and professional school and things to do before, after, during. And we have a guest speaker today. And today's guest is Philippa Carter, and she's from the Arts and Sciences Graduate School and the manager of diversity initiatives. Is that correct?
Yes.
And she's here to give us some insight into graduate school process. Please feel free to ask questions. And those of you at home, we have packets for you. Ms. Carter was nice enough to bring us some goodies. So when you come in to see your RS3 advisor for SSS, please make sure you pick up a packet. And if you have any questions, you can email us. And we can also give you, Philippa's information is in the packets, so you can always follow up with an email question or ask us in person, okay? So I'm going to turn it over, and you guys please be verbal and ask questions, but I'm sure she has some great information to share. So thank you for coming.
Alrighty. Oh, be careful.
Bloopers.
See, that's why I'm seated, so that I will not fall, because that would happen. So I'm going to change things up. Usually I'm up here as a talking head, but first I want to know how many of you are actually thinking about attending graduate school? In what?
Social work or counseling.
Okay.
Medical school.
Psychology.
Clinical or counseling site? Clinical, okay.
Education.
Okay, great. So what years are you?
Sophomore. Sophomore.
Okay, perfect. So have any of you started researching summer research opportunities that you can do in order to enhance your graduate school application? Okay. Have any of you contacted any potential graduate schools or gone to graduate fairs to see about what is necessary to get into graduate school? Okay, what have you done?
I went to the school education here and went to like a info session.
Okay.
They gave me like tuition rates, the prerequisite classes, and like GPA requirements for scholarships and grants.
Okay, so one of the first things to know is if you are thinking about applying to graduate school, it is never too early to actually start doing the research and the work necessary. You need to think about what schools in what areas do you want to live in? What kind of tests and prereqs do you need to get in? Obviously, if you're thinking of medical school, you have the MCATs. You're looking at psychology, you're looking at the GREs and typically the psychology subject test. When you're looking at social work, I believe it's the GREs, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not sure what you need for ed. Or maybe you're applying to schools that don't require it, but definitely for psych and medicine, you definitely have to take those. When are you going to take them? Are you going to allow yourself enough time to retake them if your score isn't strong? Have you investigated how much it will cost you to take those tests? How will you afford those tests? And not that I'm advocating this, but obviously if you get a part-time job at Kaplan, you get to take the tests at a discount and get to use all the materials for free. That's what I've heard from other students. So those are things to think about as you're looking at going into graduate school. Who are you going to get to write your letters of recommendation? How far in advance do you need to do that? Typically, I always tell students that they should come up with a timeline that generally starts your junior year, where you're looking at when do I need to have my scores in? What schools am I looking to apply to? How much does the application cost? Am I eligible for a fee waiver? How do I go about asking for a fee waiver? When are the applications due? When are my transcripts due? When are the letters of recommendation due? Do I have to do a statement of research versus a statement of purpose versus a statement of academic goals? So these are all the things that you need to start thinking about, and it's good that you're all sophomores, that you're getting a jump on it in order to go into applying as your senior year. Do you need more research experience because you didn't get enough of it? Maybe you're thinking about applying to a post-baccalaureate program for medical school. There are prep programs that are all over the country. It's a 1-year post-baccalaureate program that actually helps prepare students to do MD, PhD programs in the health sciences. Here at the University of Pittsburgh, Clinical psych is one of them. In the arts and sciences, we have our own post-baccalaureate program we started that's a graduate level post-baccalaureate program called Hot Metal Bridge. As with the prep programs, fully funded. You get research lab experience. You also get a stipend the way the other grad students do, and it actually gives you a leg up on other people who are applying, because you're going to have basically a year of graduate level research and work under your belt prior to applying to graduate school. How many of you, except for medicine, because I know you're MD, are thinking of PhD versus MS or MA? You need to be thinking PhD, 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 unless you're specifically looking to do the Master of Arts in Teaching, because what you want to do is specifically teach. If you are strong enough to get into a master's program, you are strong enough to get into a PhD program, and you should not settle for a master's because you somehow think it's different. Most psychology, clinical psych programs don't admit into the master's program. They only admit into the PhD, and you get the master's along the way. That's why doing your research is going to help. With social work, you can do an MSW or a PhD. A lot of it depends on the type of job that you want to get. So that's going to require more research on your part in order to figure out, what is it that I want to actually do with this degree? What am I looking for as far as my future career is concerned? So these are things that you definitely want to be thinking about. And at any point, feel free to stop me and ask a question if one pops up. But you want to have a plan when you are applying to these programs. Right now, you kind of want to start doing a CV. Who knows what a CV is? It is the academic version of a resume. It's called a curriculum vitae. The curriculum of your life, what you've done, what you've studied. You want to start putting everything down. You know, what your major is, what interests you may have, what your hobbies are, what particular skills you have, what languages you know, what awards you've done, what research experiences you've had, things of that nature, so that when you get to the point that you're starting to apply to graduate school and you start approaching faculty members to write letters of recommendation for you, you're able to give them this document that gives them a synopsis of what you want. What you have to do is look at that graduate school application as the way you want to present yourself to that school. You have a blip on your record, you address it in 1 to 2 sentences. You don't allow somebody else to interpret what's in your record. You take charge of that and present it the way you want. Recommenders are very important. Don't pick someone that you've had one class with and got an A. Have someone that you actually have had dialogues with, that really knows what your academic ability is and is able to write a letter of substance, because it's going to be more impressive to go, oh, this student was in my class and received an A. She seemed like a nice person when she was here, versus someone who's able to say, out of the 300 students that I've had in this class, student X stood out in the top 1% because of blah, 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 blah. And they're able to give specific examples. That actually makes a difference when the committee is reviewing your letters of rec. If there's a school that you're really interested in and there's a faculty member who's doing work that you're really interested in, email that faculty member. Tell them, I'm really interested in this type of work that you're doing. Are there articles or books that you can recommend that I review or look at in order to find out more about this particular subject? More than likely that faculty member is going to be on the committee, or if you actually put their name in your statement of purpose, statement of academic goals, it's going to get back to them and they're going to be able to say, oh, I've had an email correspondence with this person. You know, we've been able to do this. That's going to make a difference as you're actually looking to apply to graduate school. So there are all these things that you can be doing to be proactive. Statement of purpose, statement of recommendation, statement of academic goals. You should be starting that out at least 6 months prior to the first deadline for what you're doing. What are the guidelines? Are there specific questions? Is it open-ended? Is there specific formatting you have to follow? Is there a specific word count? For medical school, there is a strict word count in order to do your statement. And I mean, it literally cuts you off because all the medical school applications basically go into the same database, I believe. So those are things that you need to know. Make sure you're getting people who are taking a critical eye and looking at that statement of purpose, statement of academic goals, because you should plan on revising it anywhere from 12 to 15 times until it is polished. You don't want to say things like, I want to go to graduate school because when I was 3, my great-grandmother fell down and broke her leg, and that made me fall in love with medicine. Really? They're not going to want to know that. They're going to want to know, why do you want to be in graduate school? Why do you want to be in this particular program? What is it about this program that is going to help you get to the next level? Who are the faculty members in this program that you see yourself working with? How do the department's interests align with your interests? Maybe this department is the only department in the country that is doing clinical research with epidemiology or some other thing that you're really interested in. If you've done the research, you know who the faculty members are. You know what to put in that statement that's going to make you stick out from everybody else. Use all your resources. You have my business card. You can contact me. You can make appointments with me. You could go, hey, will you look at my statement of purpose? Will you look at this? And I'll go, yes, I will gladly look at this. But don't be upset by any criticism that you get. The criticism is constructive. It is there so that you can put forth the best application that you can. The other thing is if you're getting into a doctoral program, do not go unless you're fully funded. The belief at the graduate level, there's some money for master students, some money for professional students, but they're considered to pay for their own degree. Doctoral students, definitely, you should not be paying for your degree at all. That's something to think about as well. What type of funding does the program that you're looking at applying for have? Is the funding, and if you don't understand any of these, let me know. GSR, Graduate Student Researcher. That means you're actually in the lab doing research, trying to get articles published in the various journals. GSA, Graduate Student Assistant. Generally, that means that you are working with a faculty member, not doing that type of research, but more library research, are some of the other things that they want you to do. Teaching assistant. You probably had them in classes already. They're either doing the gradings, they're running the recitations. Some of them actually teach standalone courses like the Intro to Comp, English students. Most of the people who are teaching those intro comp classes, I don't even remember what they're called now, and I worked in English years ago. Those are TAs, teaching fellows. Generally at most schools, the difference between a TA and a TF, you have a little more experience, so they pay you a little bit more money. Then the golden ones that you really want are outright fellowships, which means you have no responsibilities other than being a student. The other thing is make sure that graduate school is really what you want, especially if you're committing to be a full-time grad student. It is a full-time job. It is not the same as undergrad, where you have all this kind of free time built in. You go to class, then you can go home, you can study, you can hang out with your friends. If you're in graduate school, that is your full-time job. Between being in the lab, being in class, having to do work, your research. So a lot of students don't realize that that's what it takes, and the transition can actually be more difficult for them because they weren't prepared. So what you want to do is make sure you're doing the research and you're prepared for what all it entails, so that once again, you know what you're getting into. And then that way, makes you stick out a little bit more than other applicants. Because the whole point is to have your application stick out compared to everybody else's. Why do we want to take you versus taking this person? In a typical clinical program, they get over 400 applications for 12 spots. How do you get one of those 12 spots? How do you get the interviews so that you can then be considered for one of those 12 spots? So you have the application, then they bring the people in for interviews, and then they kind of match you up based on that. So these are all things that you definitely want to be thinking about as you're looking at applying to graduate school. So, timeline, line up the best recommenders you can, and make sure they're academic recommenders. Unless the application specifically asks for someone who is non-academic, your recommenders should truly be academic recommenders. Someone who can speak to the quality of work, to your intelligence, your inquisitiveness when it comes to pursuing graduate education, because those are things that departments and committees are looking for. Because what they're trying to do is match you up with the appropriate people in their department so that your interests actually align. There is nothing worse than being in a graduate program that you don't feel as if you're really a part of because you want to do X and all they offer is Y. And because you weren't clear, they thought what you really wanted was Y. And then you get there and it's not. It becomes miserable for everybody. And that's when you have students who end up leaving programs, not finishing the degree, and it's because they didn't do the prep work in advance to make sure that that was a place that they really wanted to do. In the summer, depending on if you're local or not, maybe go and check out some departments that you're interested in, or some programs that you're interested in, if you have access and you can get to them fairly easily. Or even just do some research and check them out to see, oh, this is kind of what I want, but I'm not really sure. I wonder if there's another program that has this. Most departments and dean's offices are more than willing to talk to students who are coming in. Prospective students, students who've applied, students who are already in the program. I meet with all kinds of students. And that's going to happen at every school in the country. Because if we don't have students, we don't have jobs. That is our job, is to talk to you, to advise you. And it doesn't matter if you're not one of my students yet. Hopefully someday you will be, if you go into the arts and sciences. But that's what we're here for, and you can do that. You can email them, they'll contact you via email. Now with the proliferation of Skype, with Link, with all kinds of stuff, there's so many different ways that you can reach out to people that you don't necessarily even have to physically go there anymore, as long as you're able to make that connection. And I know that when you go on and you start doing research, you see the little Skype thing, because you can actually contact people immediately via Skype. And so those are things to think about. Think about graduate school and what it takes to get in there as you researching for your next job. And that job is graduate school that's going to take me to my postdoc, that's going to take me to my real job, or teaching, student teaching, into a classroom, into a school. MSW, you want to go into, say, working with nonprofit organizations. What are you going to do to get there? How does that MSW help you get there? Medical school, you have all of your rotations, then you have to go and do your residency. So these are all things that you need to be thinking about as well as you're looking at doing your MD. So there's just a whole bunch of stuff out there for you to think about, and lots of research that you can do, and there's tons of resources. The other thing is, don't wait for somebody to give you money. Try and get your own money. Clinical psych, there's the NSF. That's the National Science Foundation. They actually have money for students who are pursuing doctoral degrees in psychology. It's actually one of the nicer packages. You get $32,000 in a stipend. That money goes with you to whatever institution you go to. The University of Pittsburgh has on the Office of Research site a database where you can actually plug in all kinds of stuff, and it's going to pop up all kinds of fellowships that you can apply for, whether you're an undergrad or a grad. So you can think about that. If you end up with your own money, then you have a lot more choice as to where you're going to go. And with the NSF money, it's for students who are entering their first or second year of graduate school. You get it for 3 years. You have 5 years in order to take it. They give you some tuition, but every school matches whatever is not there for the tuition because they want those students, because they know that you've done, that you were able to get this award already through the National Science Foundation. I mean, currently across the graduate and professional schools here at the university, we have over 20 NSF students across all disciplines. We have them in psych, history and philosophy of science. We have them in engineering. They're in medicine. So this is really big. And this is money for students who are studying the STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. That's the big push in the government right now. So it's definitely something that you want to think about. And once again, you want to start doing the research. If you're doing all that work for the other applications, what's one more? So you work on them all at the same time. And that's the things that you should be thinking about. So any questions at this point? I'm giving you a lot of information. No? These students are all so brilliant. I love it. No questions. So just kind of to review, when you're thinking about graduate school, think of it as you looking for your next full-time job. Start doing the research now. Start thinking about preparing your curriculum vitae, your CV. And as you keep going along, you can add things to it. You can have different versions of your CV. So that's something that you just want to get into the habit of doing, especially if you're looking at going into graduate school. CVs are usually asked for as part of the application. So if you've already started working on it, then you're ahead of the game. 6 months out, start looking at preparing your statement of purpose, statement of academic goals, statement of research. Asking your advisors. One of the things I forgot to tell you is that you should really ask them 3 to 4 months in advance. Giving them a deadline date, giving them your CV, giving them some information about why you're interested in this program and kind of what you're focusing on, because then that helps them as they're writing the letters of recommendation for you. But if you start 3 to 4 months out ahead of the deadline date, then if they haven't done it, you're able to go, oh, just a reminder, I need this by this date. So that actually gives you some time so that you're not trying to scramble because you've only given them a month's notice and they forget about it, and then they have to try to put something together that isn't as strong as it could be for your application. Make a timeline for yourself. When do I need to have the GREs done? These are all the schools I'm applying to. Here are the deadline dates. Here's who I've asked to write letters of recommendation on this. This is statement of purpose done for this one, for this one, for this one. Because once you have that strong statement of purpose, then you're able to tweak it for each school that you're applying to. Proofread everything. I can't tell you, there is nothing worse than getting a statement of purpose that refers to another school. Because it happens a lot. You didn't take the time to realize that instead of sending this one, that you were sending it to the University of Pittsburgh, you have University of Massachusetts in there. It happens. We get them from faculty members, we get them from the students themselves. So then you're thinking, does a student really want our program if they couldn't take the time to proof anything? Grammar's huge. That's why you want other people to read your statement of purpose. There is nothing worse than typos, grammar errors, especially when it's something that can be very easily avoided. So these are all things that are important. But that timeline is going to be the best thing to help you get organized as you move forward and start investigating programs. Also, investigate money opportunities, because maybe if you're in a master's program, they're only going to give you partial funding, but if you've already applied for things, you can have the rest of that money made up and you don't have to worry about it. So these are things to think about too. Yes.
I have a question about post-bac
Mm-hmm.
programs. Now you specifically deal with psychology, but
Well, we actually have 6 programs we have 6 departments that are a part of our post-bac program.
Okay, so how is it viewed? So say I'm a music major.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing that's more like what post-bac is for. If I want to go another direction, I haven't taken those prerequisite classes, so I want to go into post-bac. How is that viewed in terms of graduate school, getting into a graduate school, instead of like doing the major and undergrad and getting into grad school?
Honestly, I can say very successfully that over 90% of the students who've gone through our post-bac program have been admitted into doctoral programs across the country, and top doctoral programs. And one of it is that they are getting an experience, even if it's someone who, say, changed majors. Like they started out as a science major and they really wanted English, but it was too late to really switch to an English major. So they stayed ag science, but they took some English courses. English is one of our departments for post-bac, and the program was designed on a student who actually did this. She graduated with ag science, but had English courses and had presented at a conference while she was still an undergrad. She is now a tenured faculty member in Florida. We are now into our 4th year of our post-bac program. So I can tell you we have students that are at Penn State, that are still here at Pitt, that are in California, that are in Florida. I mean, they are literally going everywhere. And what happens is our students are better prepared than other students because they've done this post-bac program. They actually have a year of what it's like to be a grad student already. And so they have mentors with these post-bac programs who are helping you with the interview process, that are helping you with your statements, that are able to comment on your research because you do a lab rotation depending on what it is. If you're in English, you're actually in graduate level English courses. So you already have this experience that other students coming in would not have. So most of these programs, the students that come out of them are highly sought after because they're a known commodity at the graduate level versus someone who would not be. But the thing is it really depends on the student as to what school you're coming from and whether or not that is something that you need, because you didn't get enough research experience. And the other thing is look at research experiences that are not here at the university. I mean, there are a number of schools across the country that have summer RAU experiences, and so you want to research them and look at the deadlines. They actually pay for you to go there. They give you room and board, you get a stipend, and you're able to do research with a faculty member where out of that you're able to produce a paper, which means you already have something that somebody else doesn't have if they're applying to that same program, or you have a faculty member who can talk about research. You've gained research skills. You've been able to use equipment that's going to be necessary for the degree. That's why I recommend that if you have a chance to do any summer research experiences, you should definitely be looking at that. And they have them all over the country. And I have to say, even those summer research experiences, those schools will try to poach you if you have a very successful research experience. Some of them will have you actually fill out graduate applications while you're there as part of the research experience. And so that's another thing to look at along with the post-bacs as well, the post-baccalaureate programs.
You called it REU?
REU.
REU?
Yeah, they're research experiences for undergraduates.
Can you explain to the class, if they have no idea where to start, besides all the tips you already gave, like actual, where do I go to look for graduate schools and what I want to do?
Well,
Are there any resources you can recommend?
there aren't any real resources